It was the night Ellie moved into her grandmother's old house, a creaky, secluded home that had stood empty for years. She'd inherited it, and though she found it eerie, Ellie couldn't afford to live anywhere else. The house had a drafty feel, cold even with the heat on, and the musty smell of old wood filled her lungs as she wandered through the darkened halls. That first night, lying on a lumpy mattress in her grandmother's old room, Ellie felt a deep unease. Just as she drifted into a shallow sleep, a faint thumping echoed from the attic above her. She tried to ignore it, writing it off as the house settling, but as the minutes passed, the thumping grew louder and more rhythmic, like footsteps shuffling across the floor. She lay in bed, frozen, every hair on her body on end. The noise finally stopped, and silence blanketed the room like a thick fog. Just as her breathing returned to normal, she heard the soft whisper of her name, Ellie. Ellie's heart pounded in her chest. She sat up, straining to hear more, when a scraping sound echoed from down the hallway. She could feel something was wrong, terribly wrong, but against her better judgment, she rose to investigate. Clutching her phone as a makeshift flashlight, she tiptoed into the hallway. The air was colder here, thick and oppressive. At the end of the hall, near the attic door, stood a dark silhouette. It was a figure she barely recognized, and yet there was something horribly familiar about it. Her grandmother's old housecoat swayed in the shadow's form, but the face was obscured, twisted, as if caught between two worlds. "Grandma?" Ellie whispered, her voice trembling. The shadow remained still, but then a soft, cold chuckle filled the air, sending a shock of terror through her. The shadow moved, slowly lifting its head. Empty, hollow eyes stared at her, deep and endless, pulling her into darkness. Just as Ellie felt her knees begin to buckle, she heard it, another whisper. Only this time, it was closer, right by her ear. "Run." She snapped out of her trance, stumbling back down the hall. But as she ran, every step she took echoed with another thud, like footsteps mirroring her own. She reached her bedroom and slammed the door, breathing heavily as she pressed her back against it. The footsteps stopped outside, just beyond the door. A pause hung in the air. Then, slowly, the handle began to turn. Ellie backed away, heart pounding, as the door creaked open. The figure stood in the doorway, a twisted smile spreading across its shadowed face, and it whispered, "Welcome home." The room went dark. Ellie screamed, but the sound seemed swallowed up, lost in the suffocating blackness. The last thing she saw was the figure closing in, its cold, dead eyes inches from her own, until everything went silent.